Hi everyone, join me today as I sketch these clogs from the Netherlands in ink and watercolor. Supplies for today: I've got a pencil and eraser, Pigma Micron pen size 0.5, silver black velvet brush size 8, spray bottle, palette of paints, a palette for mixing, water and tissue paper. Today I'm going to use my Stillman & Byrne Beta Series sketchbook. This is a mixed media sketchbook that has got cold pressed paper in it with a weighting of 270 GSM. I find it perfect for a quick sketch, but it can't take quite as many layers as a 100% pure cotton paper can. I'm going to start with my pencil sketch already on the page, and I'm going to come in now and do my ink layer with a Pigma Micron fineliner pen in size 0.5. If you would like to trace the sketch, there is a link to a free downloadable PDF reference for the sketch in the description box below. Alternatively, if you want to start in pencil first, then follow along what I'm doing with my pen in pencil. Then once you've got your sketch down, go over it with your pen. Any time that you are putting an ink layer down first and you intend putting watercolor on top, make sure that the pen that you use has got waterproof ink inside of it or archival ink, so that when you lay the watercolor down after, it doesn't cause the ink to run. Today's reference photo is provided by my Dutch friend Lillian. Lillian says that clogs are made out of local available materials, and they provide great protection against hot, cold and mud. They are also easy to slip on and take off. She says that some people still use them, especially farmers or building people working in dirt. They wear them with thick woolen knitted socks and take the clogs off when entering the house. When Lillian was a teenager in her hippie period, she had a pair and decorated them herself. She says that she could never get used to them though, as they require a completely different style of walking. The clogs in this photo were made in the city of Harderwijk. The clogs are from an old shoe salesman in the local market. He gets his clog supply from an old couple who still know this skill. He told Lillian that the clogs are always made out of a single piece of birchwood. But the old couple who made these clogs, now in their 70s, are stopping production. It's a difficult job and they can't do it anymore. I think as time goes on, we will see less and less clogs around, and they will become more difficult to find. Onto the painting layer now. I'm going to start by making a very watery mix of Naples yellow, and I'm going to lay that onto the inside of the clogs. I wanted to make this layer quite watery so that I'm able to drop more colors into it before the color dries. Then I'm going to take a thicker consistency of the Naples yellow directly from the pan and put that into the shaded area. For the outside of the clogs, I'm going to use yellow ochre. I'm going to start with a lighter consistency mix of the yellow ochre so that, like with the inside, I can also add in a thicker consistency and intensity as I need to. I'm going to try and make the surface of the clogs not look too uniform in color, and to do that I will just vary the consistency of the yellow ochre that I'm putting down. Now that the base layer of yellow ochre is down, I'm going to come in with a thicker consistency of the same color into the shadow areas. This is where I notice quite a big difference between cotton paper and the mixed media paper. When I put the thicker consistency on top, it doesn't spread out like it does if I drop into cotton paper, but more sits on top of the color that I've already got underneath. So I do find it a little bit more difficult to mix a darker color into the base layer here using the mixed media paper. For this speckled decorated area, I'm going to lay down a base layer of the yellow ochre first, and then drop in fairly concentrated dots of burnt sienna directly from the pan. Then this last area that I haven't got to yet, I will do in yellow ochre. I'm going to let that all dry completely before starting on my shadow layer. For the inside shadow on the clogs, I'm going to work with the yellow ochre, but I'm going to add some neutral tint to it to give it a shadow color. Then I'm going to mark out the shadow line and fill in the interior shadow. The thing that I like about neutral tint, adding it to any color, is that it simply makes the shadow color of the same color that you've been using. It doesn't have blues or anything in it like the Payne's Grey does, which then might alter the base color that you're dealing with. It keeps the color the same, just makes it darker. I will then do the same for the interior of the second clog. The difference between something like neutral tint and Payne's Grey when mixing with another color, if I had used Payne's Grey, for example, and added it to the yellow ochre, because the yellow ochre has got a yellow base color and the Payne's Grey is quite blue, if I had added Payne's Grey to yellow ochre, it would have turned it a greenish color, rather than just deepening the color and making it darker like the neutral tint does. So the neutral tint is far more predictable in how it's going to behave when mixing it with another color than Payne's Grey. I want to push the darkest shadow area as dark as I can. In order to do that, I'm going to take a more concentrated solution of neutral tint and lay that down on the underside of the clog. I'm then going to use a damp brush to try and blend the color outwards. Just like earlier, I'm battling with this more than I would if this was 100% cotton paper. But I'm going to do my best to get the smoothest blend out possible using the damp brush. It is in laying down these shadows that our sketch really does start coming to life. As I'm laying down my shadow color, I'm very aware of trying to create the biggest contrasts that I possibly can. I look at my reference photo for where there are areas of darkest darks sitting against the lightest lights, and wherever that happens, I try and push the darks as dark as I possibly can, whilst leaving the light areas alone. As soon as we start creating these areas of darks next to the lights on our sketch, we start to get a very three-dimensional look to it. So I will just continue to leave the lightest areas alone and start laying down shadows in the darkest areas and then spreading them outwards using a damp brush. I make sure that the whole thing is dry before I come in and work with the red, because I definitely don't want the red to bleed out into the rest of the sketch. I'm going to start with a very weak consistency of Perylene red. I'll drop that in for all the areas that I can see red. And then I'll come in with a thicker consistency and deepen the darkest areas of red. For the shadow on the ground, I'm going to work wet and wet. So I'm going to lay down a very weak consistency solution of Moon Glow, hardly any color on my brush. Once I've got that down, I will start at the edges and start with a very concentrated mix of Moon Glow and then blend it out using my damp brush. I feel that I can push the shadow at the base of the clogs a little bit darker. So once it's completely dry, I'm going to work wet and wet again, putting down some clean water first and then dropping some of the Moon Glow into the bottom of the clogs and blending it upwards. And there's my final sketch. Thanks for joining me today. Until next time, bye for now.